For over 1,000 years, the world believed the Vikings were the direct ancestors of today's Scandinavians. But when geneticists finally sequenced the bones buried beneath Norway, Sweden, and Denmark, the data revealed something nobody in Stockholm or Oslo wanted to hear. The Vikings were not a single bloodline. They were not even from where you think they were. And modern Scandinavians may not be their descendants at all. If you want the actual peer-reviewed evidence behind this discovery, hit subscribe right now. Every claim in this video is sourced from published genetic research. Let us begin. Let us start with what most people learn in school. The Vikings were Norse warriors who sailed from Scandinavia between the years 793 and 1066. They raided coastlines, founded cities like Dublin in Ireland and York in England, and eventually settled in places as far as Iceland, Greenland, and even parts of North America. The story has always been simple. The Vikings were the ancestors of today's Norwegians, Swedes, and Danes, and their genetic legacy lived on in modern Scandinavia. But in the year 2020, a massive scientific study published in the journal Nature changed this story forever. A team of researchers led by Esk Willerslev at the University of Copenhagen analyzed the deoxyribonucleic acid of 442 Viking-age skeletons from across northern Europe. The samples came from burial sites in Norway, Sweden, Denmark, Iceland, Greenland, the United Kingdom, Ireland, and even Italy. What they found was completely unexpected. The first surprise was that the Vikings were not genetically uniform at all. The traditional image of the blonde-haired, blue-eyed Norseman turned out to be a myth. The genetic analysis revealed that Viking populations carried significant amounts of ancestry from southern Europe and from Western Asia. In some Viking burial sites, particularly in southern Sweden, individuals showed strong genetic links to populations from the Mediterranean region. Other Viking remains carried genetic markers from groups originating in what is now Western Russia and the Baltic states. This meant that the Viking world was a melting pot, not a closed bloodline. People from many different origins had mixed with the Norse population through trade, raids, and migration over hundreds of years. The second discovery was even more striking. The researchers compared the genetic profiles of these ancient Vikings with the genetic profiles of modern Scandinavians living today. The results showed that today's Norwegians, Swedes, and Danes carry only a partial genetic inheritance from the Viking age population. In fact, modern Scandinavians have absorbed substantial genetic input from later European migrations that took place after the Viking era. This includes ancestry from groups that migrated from continental Europe during the medieval period and from populations that arrived during the early modern era. The genetic continuity that everyone assumes simply does not exist in the way history books described it. The third finding may be the most controversial. Among the Viking remains studied, the researchers identified individuals buried with full Viking war gear and Viking cultural items who were genetically not Scandinavian at all. These were people from places like the British Isles, the Sami regions of northern Scandinavia, and even from southern European populations. They had become Vikings through culture and identity, not through bloodline. This shows that being a Viking was not a matter of genetics. It was a matter of lifestyle, profession, and social identity. A man born in what is now Scotland or Finland could become a Viking warrior, sail with Norse crews, fight in Norse battles, and be buried with Norse honors. Being Viking was a job description, not a racial category. The fourth discovery centers on the Viking expansion across Europe. The genetic data revealed that different Viking groups had distinctly different genetic profiles depending on where they. Norwegian Vikings carried strong genetic links to populations in the Atlantic islands like the Orkneys, Shetlands, and Hebrides. Danish Vikings showed close genetic connections to populations in England and northern Germany. Swedish Vikings, especially those from the eastern regions, displayed remarkable genetic ties to populations in Eastern Europe and along the Volga River. This means the Viking expansion was not a unified movement of one people. It was 3 or 4 parallel expansions, each carrying its own distinct genetic signature into different parts of the world. Von Phi Fina El Parsec. Now let us examine why this discovery matters far beyond the academic world. The genetic ancestry industry has become a multi-billion-dollar global market, and discoveries like this one directly shape consumer behavior. The global direct-to-consumer genetic testing market was valued at approximately $1.9 billion United States dollars in 2023, and analysts project it will grow to over $6 billion United States dollars by the year 2030. Companies like Ancestry.com, 23andMe, MyHeritage, and Living DNA have built massive databases by selling ancestry kits to millions of customers, particularly in countries with European heritage like the United States, Canada, and Australia. When studies like this Viking research go public, they create immediate market reactions. Search interest for Viking ancestry tests spikes by hundreds of % within days of major media coverage. Ancestry companies often release new products or update their algorithms to capture this consumer attention. But there is a deeper economic shift happening here. The Viking discovery proves that simple ancestry categories are scientifically misleading, which has triggered legal and regulatory pressure on the genetic testing industry. In the year 2023, the United States Federal Trade Commission opened multiple investigations into ancestry companies for misleading consumers about genetic ancestry claims. Class action lawsuits have been filed in California and New York, alleging that ancestry results are statistically. This regulatory pressure is forcing companies to spend hundreds of millions of dollars updating their methodologies, hiring population geneticists, and revising their marketing claims. The investment cost per genetic test has nearly doubled in the last 3 years. There is also a major implication for the pharmaceutical industry. Drug companies have long relied on European ancestry assumptions when designing medications, particularly drugs targeting cardiovascular disease, cancer, and mental health conditions. The Scandinavian population has been a key reference group for clinical trials worth tens of billions of dollars. If the genetic profile of modern Scandinavians is significantly different from what was assumed, pharmaceutical companies must reconsider their entire data foundation. This is already happening. Major firms like Pfizer, Novartis, and Roche have begun investing in population-specific genetic studies, with combined research budgets exceeding $4 billion United States dollars annually. The personalized medicine market, valued at $796 billion United States dollars in 2023, is being directly reshaped by discoveries like this one. Finally, consider the tourism and heritage industry in Scandinavia itself. Norway, Sweden, and Denmark generate over $40 billion United States dollars annually from tourism, and Viking heritage is one of the largest single drivers of that revenue. Museums in Oslo, Stockholm, and Copenhagen attract millions of visitors based on Viking branding. As scientific discoveries reshape the public understanding of Viking identity, these institutions face a strategic challenge. Do they update their narratives and risk losing the romantic Viking myth that drives ticket sales, or do they ignore the science and risk losing credibility with educated tourists? The economic stakes here are enormous, and the answer will reshape an entire heritage industry over the coming decade. So what does all of this really mean for how we understand human history? The Viking discovery teaches us a powerful lesson. The categories we use to describe ancient peoples are almost always too simple to capture the truth. The Vikings were not a race. They were not a single people. They were a culture, a profession, and a way of life that absorbed individuals from across Europe and Western Asia. Modern Scandinavians carry only part of this legacy, mixed with many other genetic streams that arrived later in history. This is not a story of disappointment. It is a story of complexity, connection, and the surprising truth that human identity has always been a moving river rather than a fixed bloodline. If you found this evidence-based investigation valuable, take a moment to subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications, because every week we break down the latest peer-reviewed genetic discoveries that are reshaping human history. Drop a comment below telling us which ancient population you want investigated next. Was it the Celts, the Phoenicians, the Sumerians, or someone else entirely? Your suggestions guide our research priorities. Share this video with anyone who still believes the simple Viking story, because real science deserves a wider audience. Thank you for watching, and we will see you in the next investigation.